Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to be talking about Squadrons in Armada today, specifically about keywords. And if you haven't already seen my basic Squadron video of how they work, I'm going to put a link to that at the end of the video, so stay tuned to the end. I'll also be doing more advanced Squadron videos. I'm going to be doing some build-specific videos after this, so stay tuned for that. Or if you're very new to Armada, I have check out my website, Crabbok.com, on a lot of sections on how to play and how to get started, what to buy first. Everything for a newcomer coming into Armada is there, as well as stuff for X-Wing and other games as well. But let's keep going now with Squadrons. So I want to talk about all the different keywords, and I'm going to start with the ones we see in the core set. So if you're already playing Armada, you've seen these already, but I would be doing a disservice to a video specifically about Squadron keywords if I did not at least start with what we see first. So first I want to talk about Swarm. Now, Swarm is a very great ability, and basically what happens when somebody has Swarm, if they are attacking a squadron who are engaged with another squadron, they can re-roll one die. So engaged means you're being within distance 1, and it can be one of any attack die. However, usually the ships that have Swarm in the core set have blue dice, but there are some other ones like Z95s that have red dice. So it's any die that they've rolled, they can re-roll, and they can do that one time. And so Swarm is good, and you'll see Swarm kind of combo into some other abilities like Howl Runners specifically, and there are other things that affect these. I'm not really going to go into the named squadrons as much, because I'm just going to be talking about the keywords. The next one I want to talk about is Bomber. So Bomber is great because squadrons don't get to use crits, and their crits basically count as a miss. So if you have Bomber, your crit adds a damage, and also you can resolve a critical effect. So basically your crits totally count, but this only if you're attacking a ship. So Bomber is only useful when attacking ships. It's not so good against other squadrons, but that's fine because blowing up ships is how we win the game. So Bomber is very good. Escort. Now, if you've only played the core set, Escort didn't mean a whole lot to you. But basically what it says is that engaged squadrons cannot attack a squadron that lacks Escort if there's another, basically if there's an Escort there. And what that means is basically think of an X-Wing protecting an A-Wing. Right? Maybe there's a Y-wing bomber or something else that's that's near that you don't want the TIE fighters to be able to hit. They have to shoot the escort first. Once there's no more escorts, then they can shoot whatever they want. But that's basically Escort in a nutshell. If this was an MMO, then think of it as the tank who's taunting everybody else. If everybody's escorts, then they have their pick of the litter. Next, I'm going to start talking about some of the keywords we see outside of the core set in the first wave, and I'll be going down the list on as they've come out. I'll talk about them. So next, we're going to see Counter. So Counter is really cool. So basically, after a squadron attacks you with a non-counter attack, so basically any normal attack, you get to attack back with the counter value. So if the counter is 1, you get to roll 1 blue die to attack back. If the counter is 2, you get to roll 2 blue dice, etc. Whatever the counter number is, that's how many blue dice you get to roll. Even if it kills you, even if their attack kills you, you still get to counter. Counter is one of those keywords where people forget to use it a lot. I have been guilty of this many times. I have forgotten to use counter so many times, and you've got to remember to do it. And it's every time they attack you. It's also important to point out that you get other attack bonuses because a counterattack is an attack. So anything that says when someone's attacking. So for example, if you had Swarm and counter, you would get a reroll on your counter. If you have Torrent Far buffing your counter, you get a reroll from Torrent Far because they're blue dice. If you have Howl Runner nearby and you're counterattacking, and you meet the criteria for Howl Runner to give you an extra die, you can also add that to your counter attack. So a counter attack is a full-fledged attack. It just has the counter keyword, so certain things will apply specifically to attacks that are not counter, such as being able to counter itself. So otherwise you just keep countering back and forth until everybody was dead. Next one, Heavy. So Heavy is a keyword that basically allows other squadrons to ignore you. It says the text of it is you don't prevent engaged squadrons from attacking ships or moving, but it's important to know that while you don't prevent them from doing all the things that otherwise being engaged prevents them from doing, you are still engaged with them. And that really only counts for things that add to engagements, like Swarm, for example. If you had a TIE fighter and a bomber with Heavy, that the bomber was there, he doesn't prevent the other ship from doing anything, but the TIE fighter would get the swarm bonus because he's still engaged with the heavy squadron as opposed to not being engaged with another squadron. So heavy can still engage, it just doesn't really give you any of the standard benefits that being engaged tends to give you. Grit. Now, what it basically does is it says you are not prevented from moving if you are engaged with only one enemy squadron. So it means it basically takes 2 squadrons to tie you down. It's important, though, that a lot of people overlook grit or mistake grit for thinking they can also attack if they're only engaged with one other squadron. You still have to shoot squadrons. You can't ignore one squadron and attack a ship. But you can move and then attack a ship. So if you're activated, it's you'll still have to move first. So that's one of the things that is important to keep in mind about grit. Next, I want to talk about Rogue. Rogue is one of the best keywords in the game, and what Rogue does is it allows you to attack and move during the squadron phase. So if you don't activate this ship with a squadron command, normally at the squadron phase you can only attack or move, but not both. Rogue lets you do both. Rogue is great because what Rogue means, if you have enough rogues in your build, is you don't have to dedicate much of your fleet to supporting squadrons. They can go completely autonomously across the board. They don't have to be in range of your ships, and that's another thing because normally you're only activating squadrons that are at range close to medium. So you have to normally keep your squadrons close if you want to do that. If they have Rogue, you can send them wherever you want. Don't have to worry about it. They're completely independent, and so that's amazing. So Rogue is very, very good. Also, next up is Intel. Intel is a huge ability for any squadron-centric build. Intel says that enemy squadrons at distance 1 have heavy. And we already talked about how heavy won't stop you from moving or shooting, right? So if you have a big ball of squadrons that you want to be able to move across the board or whatever, you don't want a single TIE fighter to fly in and tie everybody up and throw a monkey wrench in your plans, you've got to include Intel. Intel is amazing for that. So Intel just got to have Intel in almost every squadron build. New one, Cloak. Cloak is one of the newer keywords that we have seen recently, and Cloak says at the end of the squadron phase you may move up to distance 1, even if you are engaged. Now this one is kind of hit or miss. I've played around with Cloak a little bit, and while it has its uses, I don't think it's I think it's one of the weaker keywords that come in squadrons. It's still cool. It's also one of those that's very easy to forget to do because you're winding everything down. But Cloak has a couple of very interesting uses in that you don't have to use it if you're engaged, because it says basically if you're engaged you can move it to distance 1 and usually get out of the engagement, which is great if you want to send them into attack again the following turn. But people mistake that and think that's the only way you can use it. You can use it if you're not engaged. You can use it just to go farther ahead, or maybe you activate your cloaked ship to where it's close to the enemy, but they can't shoot you when the squadron phase comes around. And so then at the end of the squadron phase, now you move them in to where you're engaged with everybody else. Maybe you move them up to engagement. And this way, in case the other person's first player, they can't start off with a squadron command and completely move in and wreck everything. So Cloak is very good for that, just to mess with people. Next up is Relay. Relay is one of the biggest new squadron commands that we've seen. Relay says that enemy ships that resolve a squadron command can activate a number of squadrons at distance 1 to 3 of you equal to your relay value. So if you're Relay 2, whenever a friendly ship does a squadron command, up to 2 of those squadrons that they activate can be at distance 1 to 3 of the relay ship. So the idea is you can send a ball of ships far ahead with at least one relay in there, and then your ships that are far away can still be able to hit them with the squadron command. That's huge, especially for flotillas, lifeboats, to be able to still get in there and support the fight with squadron commands and not have to worry about range. So relay is very nice. Right now, it really only seems heavily useful on the Empire side because the Lambda has the relay value of 2. The Rebels version with the VCX only has a relay value of 1, so it's not as appealing of a relay platform, but we may see more of them in the future. Next up, Strategic. Strategic, huge, very fun new ability. And Strategic says when you end your movement at distance 1 of an objective token, you can move that objective token to be distance 1 of your squadron. So what does that mean? That means basically if I move up close to an objective token, I can move that objective token anywhere else in a circle of range 1 to me. So basically you can kind of walk, and if you have 2 of these, and that's the thing with Strategic, if you have 2 of them, you can move 1, move something forward, then move the other one, and just kind of walk it. So and an objective token applies to the objectives. So if you're using strategic, you'll want to have objectives that have objective tokens. So you'll want to have some stuff like minefields or whatever in there. And this way you can move them into position. Or if there's an objective token that's, if you're close to this one, you get points or whatever, you can move it behind your ships and out of range of the enemy ships. And it allows you to remake the rules of the game and kind of remake the battlefield. So strategic is very, very fun. And it's always good to have at least one ship with strategic, just in case you end up getting on the bad side of an objective that has objective tokens. It's also cool that you can take objective tokens off of obstacles. If there's an objective that has objective tokens on the obstacles, you can take the objective token off of the obstacle. You can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. Snipe. Snipe is a new keyword that allows you to attack at distance 2. With a number of blue dice equal to your snipe value. So if you have snipe of 3, you'll roll 3 blue dice to attack at distance 2. Important thing here, also the snipe ignores counter, and that's like one of the biggest things because a lot of ships now have counter, and a lot of popular ships have counter. So there's a lot of counter attacks going on, and if you have snipe, you can totally ignore that. Here's the thing though, you can't be at distance 1 of the ships. They have to be at 2. They can't be at 1. So that you can't snipe at point blank range. You have to do your normal attack. And what that also means is you can't ignore counter if they're at point blank range of you. Now, if you are engaged, you can snipe somebody who is at distance 2 that is outside of range 1. But if you are engaged with an escort, you will need to still attack the escort first because snipe is an attack. And also snipe will get the same benefits that any other attack would get. So for example, if you had Howl Runner buffing somebody, they'd get an extra die for that. If you had anything that's going to increase a squadron's attack, it will also increase the snipe attack. And that's about all of the keywords we have right now in the game. I do expect by about this time next year there'll probably be 3 or 4 brand new keywords into the Squadron game of Armada, but that's about all of them. I'm going to be doing some videos that talk about some of the very popular Squadron builds that you might see coming forward, so stay tuned for those. And, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like this video, and leave me a comment and let me know what is your favorite keyword and what combination of these keywords do you want to see on Squadrons. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.